After the Constitution of the Confederate States of America, we can look at the various declarations of secession from the rebel states and territories for the reasons why they left the Union. The first state to secede was South Carolina in December 1860. That secession declaration immediately complains that the 14 northern states have consistently failed to uphold their constitutional obligation to protect the property of citizens of the southern slaveholding states. Decoding this and re-saying it in plain English, the northern states were exercising their states' rights to not recognize the fugitive slave laws or anyone's claim to human property, and this was oppressive to the southern states. The South Carolina Declaration also mentions slavery, labor, and service, as in servants, some 27 times, with the further 2 mentions of hostile forces inciting servile insurrection, meaning slave rebellions. The only mention of taxes in their ordinance is in relation to the 3/5 clause of counting slaves as population for congressional districts based on taxes paid by their owners. Let's look further at the Confederate states that actually allowed black men in the military or the militia at one time or another during the war. The Louisiana State Militia had the first regiment of black troops in the war, period. Louisiana's secession ordinance was very short and did not mention slavery. However, slavery was a central topic of discussion in the Secession Convention, and the state even sent commissioners to Texas to convince Texas legislators to secede to protect Southern institutions. When they mean Southern institutions, they're not talking about peach cobbler and sweet tea. The state of Alabama allowed mixed-race Creoles in the state militia. Right at the beginning of their secession ordinance, Alabama declared it was leaving the Union because Abraham Lincoln was elected and his party was hostile to slavery. Alabama then declared its intention to unify with the slaveholding states of the South. Now, in 1861, Lincoln was perfectly willing to leave slavery alone where it existed, including all of Alabama. This means the Alabama secession delegates saw the Republicans as hostile to slavery's extended presence outside the South, that being returning escaped slaves in the North to the South and allowing slavery in new territories out west. There is no mention in Alabama's secession ordinance of taxes or tariffs. Quite a few black Georgians served in the Navy as junior enlisted sailors or were hired out to the Navy as civilian pilots. Georgia's secession document mentions slavery, labor, and servants a whopping 38 times. Plus, they threw the servile insurrection paranoia in the declaration as well. There are 0 mentions of taxes or tariffs. Next, Virginia allowed black Southerners to serve in all-black units, with white officers, at the very end of the war. There's no mention of slavery in Virginia's secession ordinance as it's a very short legal document. However, it was definitely a central topic discussed in the Secession Convention. This is where Alexander Stephens said to the convention in his famous Cornerstone speech, "The great truth, I repeat, upon which our system rests, is the inferiority of the African," and he followed that up with, "Subordination to the white man is his normal condition." Well, that's Virginia. Since this documentary series is about the Civil War in the Wild West, let's look at the reasons for rebel confederation in the Far West. In the Lone Star State and former Republic of Texas, in their secession ordinance, slavery is mentioned over 20 times, while taxes and tariffs are not mentioned at all. The delegates also declared Texas was joining the Confederacy for the express purpose of maintaining and protecting the institution known as Negro slavery, the servitude of the African to the white race within her limits, a relation that had existed from the first settlement of her wilderness by the white race, and which her people intended should exist in all future time. And all future time means forever, folks. Next, we have the Arizona Territory, which seceded under the provisional government after the original 7 states seceded, but before Virginia and the other border states joined the rebellion. The Arizona Secession Ordinance declares first a declaration that the Republican Party has violated the rights of the southern states. They actually put that in before declaring their own legitimate grievance that the US government failed to protect them from Native American attacks, although in the document they used the term "savages in our midst." Then near the end of the document, the Arizona delegates declare, "We will not recognize the present Black Republican administration." Black men were not voting Republicans in 1860 because they weren't US citizens, they weren't voting. When people in the 1850s and 60s said Black Republicans, it was a slur for people who supposedly represented black folks but not Americans, meaning white-skinned Anglo-Americans. Not only did the Confederate government and its several states intend to preserve the institution of African slavery and subordination to white Americans, but they also aimed to expand the practice to new territories.